710 ESPN Southern California Experience. Broadcasting from LA Live inside the CarMax Studios continues. Here's LaFern.
And welcome back to the Southern California Experience. I'm LaFern Cusack. With all the anger that's out there in sports, the fans, the athletes, what are we to do with this anger? In studio today, we have Bill Burns. He has a talent to find the individual best way for each athlete to deal with loss, the pressure to perform week after week, game after game. Bill Burns, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, ma'am.
Now, this thing about anger, the fans have anger. There's anger riots in the stands and also with the players. How can we get a grasp on it and take the anger out of playing if it needs to be or if it doesn't?
Well, I think, first of all, we have to understand that we live in a very angry society. We can't even discuss health care, let alone a football game, without anger.
Right.
And the game, and in the sport, in the competition that generates probably the most anger is the dating game. So we certainly live in an environment where anger is rife.
Right.
The other issue is I think that people have an unrealistic idea of how life works. And the reality is that we have gladiators, and you want those gladiators to go and compete and fight and win. And then they want them to sit down for tea with Aunt May and not offend her. I mean, somewhere along the line we have to get a sense of proportion here. If you want people to go in and fight and get committed and drive, and most people have no concept of how much concentration, how much dedication, how much total involvement an athlete has in what they're doing, whether it's a javelin throw or whether it's a winning pass at a football game or what it is. People they don't have enough concentration to go to Walmart and buy what was on their food list. You know what I mean? And these are people who can go out there on a playing field of whatever type, be absolutely, totally consumed with what they are doing, with absolute focus on the competitive element of what they're being asked to do and what they're asking of themselves that they do. And that intensity, by the more fragilely inclined, is seen as anger. There's more anger in most relationships than there is in a sports competition. Now, sometimes that drive, that need to win, that intensity can spill over after a game.
Right.
Because we are such wimps in terms of how we handle intensity and competitiveness. We want it to be nice and neat and fit between the Fritos and the Pepsi. Our reaction to a sports figure whose intensity carries beyond the nicely prescribed borders of his little competition are draconian. I mean, to take a young man and cancel his career for a whole season because of being carried away, I mean,
the punishment doesn't fit the crime.
No, and why is he down there if they don't want him to be so consumed with what he's doing? Only if it's inconvenient and they think that an alumni might be upset and maybe withhold a contribution. Then, of course, the poor kid gets creamed when he was doing what he's been trained his whole life to do.
Right.
So I really don't think it is anger. I mean, people are going to say I sound angry. I'm not. I'm intense. I really believe in this.
Right.
I'm not angry, but people have become such wimps they can't tell the difference between intensity and anger. And drive and enthusiasm. I mean, a man can't even celebrate in the end zone of a football game when he scores a touchdown.
Right. And it's all...
Oh, my God, it might be obscene. It might be terrible. It's nothing of the sort. It's just exuberance. So we, I think, as a group of spectators, since most of us aren't involved in sports in any meaningful way, have to decide, do we want a bunch of wimps on the field bowing politely to each other and neatly carrying this football to the end zone provided there's no opposition, or do we want people down there actually intense, focused,
and
to win a game?
Getting the job done.
Right, get the job done. And the sports fans show far more intensity and anger in the stands than the players on the field. Sometimes you think the players are the most relaxed people in the entire game. Right. But if a fan turns around and slugs another fan, that's nothing.
It's nothing.
No. So let this player go beyond these prescribed.
Oh, yes, I see what you're saying.
You see what I mean?
Yes.
And then all of a sudden it's a horrible thing. That's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, but what about the psychological aspect of people saying, well, you know, a player cannot drive through anger or through these emotions. It's not healthy for a person to play that way for like years and years and years. Of course, it's going to spill over in the quote box of our own society.
But it doesn't. The fact is, the incidences of that spilling over into private life are so small that most sports fans can enumerate them on one hand. A Shaq, a Kobe, an occasional this event. They don't spill over. And the fact is that far more damage is done by a repression of feelings than ever expressing them. I think most people that have this criticism have it because they don't like having their own feelings triggered. They don't want to face the fact that they're not being honest emotionally. And when somebody else is honest emotionally, it threatens them and they want to shut the other people down. It'd be a good idea if they looked at the people who are showing their emotions and used them as a learning lesson, let their own out.
Right. And well, how can we use this and flip it around and make it a positive aspect in the game?
It is a positive aspect for the players. They're down there pulling their guts out, winning games, losing games, being crushed when they lose a game, being just thrilled when they win a game. It's working fine for them. What I don't understand is why people are just so out of touch with reality. They want to set the lion free on the field, and then they want it to act like a pussycat at dinner. That's ridiculous.
Right.
And most sports figures have an incredibly high level of elegance, of manners, of behavioral. But we also have to realize that a lot of the sports figures, particularly the ones that make a great deal of money, not necessarily at the college level, don't come from backgrounds where they were trained in any of this or taught any of this. I think they do an outstanding job, given the pressures of their job and the intensity that they need to bring to the game, and then live their lives as socially responsible people who are philanthropic, who help kids, who, you know, do so much to help other people.
Right.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that intensity.
So how can we incorporate this motivating factors on the field or outside the field for actually the sports fans themselves?
Well, you know, if the sports fans were willing to go to that space in themselves where they're being dishonest and start getting in touch with their own feelings, start learning from players, start finding passion in their own life that they can bring that to, which they can do as a fan, and often do, and can get very carried away with the game, and that's very healthy. One of the wonderful things for most guys and some women is that after a television broadcast of a very close game, everybody that was there rooting on both sides and getting really crazy in the living room over this game, after the game is over, feel tremendously better.
Yes.
Whether they won or lost, they feel a lot better because they got that out. These aren't the people that are complaining. It's, you know, it's like everything else. When the people that don't involve themselves in something try to pass judgment on it, people with no experience are trying to make the rules just to make themselves comfortable or to gain an advantage with the people voting for them or donating to them or whatever. That's when the trouble arises. I think if we want to make this useful, we ought to ask the sports figures what should happen. It's the sports figures that should decide what the penalty is, what adequate behavior is. And I think the press would do a lot better to glorify all the help these players give to kids that are starting out